Meet Charlie. Charlie has lived on the Curve Lake First Nation Reserve for his entire life with his parents. Before them, Charlie's grandparents also resided here, and many generations of Charlie's family knew Curve Lake as home. You cannot drink the water here. Curve Lake First Nation has been under a boil water advisory since September 20th, 2018, and had experienced repeated advisories over the decades before. A boil water order is usually issued when evidence indicates that the drinking water is or may be responsible for an outbreak of illness. Charlie wondered why his community was affected for so long. Charlie decided to conduct research on water quality near his home and was shocked to discover that out of 62 municipalities on boil water advisories in Ontario, over 50 are First Nations communities and that 4 areas are listed as do not consume. Charlie discovered that most of the water advisories in Canada occur in small communities and private systems where there are neither the population nor the funds to update the infrastructure. After discovering this fact, Charlie decided to research the effects of poor drinking water on Indigenous reserves and the solutions put forward by the government. Analysis questions. Please pause the video to consider the following analysis questions. The application of learning theories can be applied in this scenario to examine and interrogate assumptions of prior knowledge. The constructivist learning theory focuses on real-life application, where the learner is given the opportunity to construct personal meanings from what is presented to them. Ali, 2007. The learner creates their own worldview based on their observations of objective reality. David L., 2015. The application of connectivism may provide alternative ways of knowing and sharing information. According to Siemens, connectivism is driven by the understanding that decisions are based on rapidly altering foundations. New information is continually acquired. Siemens, 2005, page 4. Awareness of unsafe drinking water conditions on First Nations reserves can be shared through social media. The right to clean water is an essential and basic human right. Barrera, 2018. The David Suzuki Foundation released a report titled Reconciling Promises and Reality: Clean Drinking Water for First Nations. It is the second study on Ottawa's promise to end long-term First Nation water advisories by 2021. The report calls on the government to co-create legislations and regulations concerning First Nation water systems. Barrera, 2018. Problems and challenges identified include inequities in the provision of safe water leave communities vulnerable to waterborne diseases, stress, and associated health effects. Lack of trained staff to fix problems with the water system such as line breaks, equipment failure, and poor filtration and disinfection of drinking water. The ongoing effects of colonization which have contributed to the erosion of Indigenous peoples' livelihood systems, culture, and resources. Adelson, 2005. In 2016, the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal, or CHRT, determined that their approach to services for First Nations children was discriminatory. Government of Canada, 2019. There's evidence that once affected with a health impact, Indigenous community members are further burdened by unequal access to healthcare services to help them cope with waterborne illnesses and effects on well-being. Government of Canada, 2017. Reserves can be geographically remote from other communities, making it difficult to deliver resources. The erosion of water resources has a negative impact on the well-being of communities and contributes to the current inequity in the health status of Indigenous Canadians. Waldron et al., 2006. While responsibility for water supply in Canada lies with municipalities, it is the federal and provincial governments through the Canadian Council of Ministers of the Environment that set the standards for water management and quality. Much like the responsibility issues that led to the creation of Jordan's Principle, this separation of responsibilities makes it difficult for First Nations citizens to seek improvements in the quality of their tap water. Larger cities can afford larger treatment facilities, proper management and testing through highly trained and qualified staff, and the distribution infrastructure is largely already in place, making connection to the mains relatively easy as new homes are constructed. On reserves, poor infrastructure makes water connections expensive. Residents who don't and can't own their land have to pay for service connections, including water, electricity, and gas themselves, including the cost of running the lines to their home, often costing up to or even upwards of $70,000, or around 5 years' income for an average reserve resident, leaving many residents traveling to outdoor water stations and filling jugs to bring home for their water needs. The health effects go beyond the physical. The enormous cost of improving the infrastructure on reserves feeds into the public perception of reserve Indians as asking for everything while contributing little, leading to poor self-image, depression, and the very high rates of suicide among youths that we see on reserves today. As Don Martin Hill says, the pain that they carry beyond historical trauma is the fact that they know this country simply doesn't care about them as Indigenous youth. If they did, they would have clean water. Solutions. In the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada Calls to Action document, items 3 and 23 section 2 read as follows. 3. We call upon all levels of government to fully implement Jordan's Principle. Jordan's Principle is a legal obligation that First Nations children will get the products, services, and supports they need when they need them. Payments will be worked out later. Government of Canada, 2018. In May 2017, the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal ordered substantive equity under Jordan's Principle for First Nations children. This means giving extra help when it is needed so First Nations children have an equal chance to thrive. This meant health, social, and education products, services, and healthcare services supports that are needed right away. Government of Canada, 2019. Jordan's Principle ensures that children who may get sick from poor drinking water are provided with healthcare right away, eliminating any gaps in government services to children in need. Truth and Reconciliation Call to Action Number 23, Section 2. Ensure the retention of Aboriginal healthcare providers in Aboriginal communities. The Federal Department of Indigenous Services Canada, or ISC, is responsible for improving access to high-quality services for First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people in Canada, and to support the Indigenous peoples, deliver services, and address the socio-economic conditions in these communities. Sawchuk, 2018. Government of Canada's commitment to clean drinking water on public systems on reserve. The Government of Canada has committed to ending all long-term advisories on public systems on reserves by March of 2021. The government included investments to improve infrastructure, support proper facility operation and maintenance, and support training of water system operators improving drinking water on reserves and ending long-term drinking water advisories. Government of Canada, 2018.